Start over. Hold on, start over.
Uncle Jewel had what?
Uncle Joe is about a 1954 Plymouth. I believe is what it was, something like that. It's about the color of that car you drive, blue. And he parked on the hill there, my grandpa's. They was in there visiting. We had a pet goat. That pet goat didn't stay in the fence. He didn't stay chained up. He just had to run to the farm. He went wherever he wanted to be. And while Uncle Joel and Aunt Edna was in the house visiting, that goat climbed on the car, got up on the hood, got on the roof, all over the car, and did a tap dance all over that car. And you can imagine what it looked like when he got down. We finally seen him and run him off. The damage is already done.
What about the pig? What about the pig that used to follow you to school?
We had a pet pig. Daddy had an old sow that had pigs. One of them was a runt. You don't know what a runt is. It's like a preemie baby today. And he couldn't feed with the rest of the litter. So he wasn't getting nothing to eat. So Daddy thought he is dead, and he just throwed him off to the side. The other pigs were getting all the milk. Elizabeth found him and brought him to the house, wrapped him in a towel, and she spoon-fed that pig milk till he got up to, when Daddy finally got rid of him or sold him, I saw a hog weighed about 300 pounds. We lived at Suffolk Lake at the time, and that pig wasn't nothing but a pet, like that goat was. He had to run to the place, outside that is. We went to a white school up there, little one-room country school. Mary Bird was a teacher at the time, as I remember. That pig would follow us to school of a morning, just like a dog would. And he'd lay down outside and wait until we got out for lunch. And we just lived about a quarter of a mile from the school. So we always went home at lunch. That hog would get up and follow us home at lunch. We eat lunch, come back to school, the pig would follow us back. I should say hog now. He would follow us back and lay down and wait, just like a dog, till we got out of school. Then he would get up and follow us back home. As I said, the hog finally got up to about 350 pounds, makes a good meat hog. And Daddy took him and sold him and bought a brand new bicycle for us boys. Me, Tommy, Jimmy, and Richard, all four of us shared that bike. That's how bad it was. And I don't know if Elizabeth ever got to ride the bike or not, but I always thought, well, it was Elizabeth's pig or a hog. She fed him and nursed him, got him up to where he was able to bring some good money at the sale, and then us four wound up with a bicycle.
Well, that wasn't right.
It ain't
I don't
right.
know what her thoughts were on that.
I'd like to hear her say.
What a pig sell for and what a bike sell for back in? What a pig sell for back in?
Not very much, probably. I don't know what the bicycle would have been, but it'd probably been about a fourth of what a bicycle is now. And I'd say the hog would probably been about the same price.
Wow.
If a bicycle was $300 now, a bicycle would probably been 75 back then. Probably less. It'd be less than that.
You mean a hog sold real cheap?
Huh?
Hogs is real cheap?
Well, you got to remember, back then, this was in the time I grew up, was in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
You didn't make much money on the farm.
So that's why we eat so much hog. That's why we had so much hog all the time.
Yeah, you could sell them. You didn't get much out of them. Most people slaughtered them or killed them. They'd have a hog killing in the fall. When it got cold weather, they'd shoot the hog between the eyes. Then they would cut his throat and they'd hang him up with his back feet like a deer, so the blood would all drain out of the hog. Then it would have a fire going of a 55-gallon drum or bigger, full of water boiling. And they would take with a pulley and dip that hog down in that scalding water. And then they'd take a knife and scrape that hair off of the hog. Then they would lay him on a wagon and cut him up in portions like the ham, the shoulders, the feet, the tails, the tenderloin, all the parts of the hog, they parted all out. Then back those days, they didn't have curing like they did today. They didn't have freezers, cold places to keep the meats, so they put it in salt in the smokehouse. They smoked their meat, they put it in the smokehouse, and they had a big salt bed where they take, it's kind of like a table, and it would be covered with salt. And they take that fresh hog meat, and they coat it all in that salt, put it in a bed of salt. And that's how they preserve the meat. You get right there and you get bacon, slice it. You hang hams from the ceiling on a grass string, hams and shoulders and stuff that was salted. They would cure it like that, and that's how you get what they call today country hams. A lot different today. Some people still kill hogs like that. They'll have once a year. They'll get together and they'll kill hogs, and they'll have maybe 10 hogs that they kill. And they'll have all the meat spread out on the wagon that they covered up. It covers the wagon, and everybody that had a hog that they all pitched in together that day and could kill will gather up their portion of the meat and take it to their home. And most likely today, unless it's probably a ham or a shoulder, it's probably going to be put in a freezer. A country ham or a shoulder like that would probably be salted and hung in the smokehouse.
I just know Daddy'd help somebody and he'd bring home what they didn't want, we'd eat. He was always bringing home leftovers, what nobody else didn't want.
Help them do what?
Daddy brought home leftovers that nobody else didn't want, we'd eat. Daddy helped kill hogs.
Oh.
Getting back to what I started to say a while ago, Grandpa had about 80 acres over there. We had fruit trees, all kinds. We growed all the crops. We had a big garden site. There was a big cistern up there. There's a big dugout. One of the wells, the cistern is about 15 foot deep and probably 12 foot in diameter. And we collected rainwater to fill that cistern up. That's how we got water to use for washing clothes, washing dishes, and such as that, for watering the garden and stuff. We had a spring straight down the hill in the valley. Who's that?
That's Denny.
Huh?
Denny?
No, it ain't Denny. I don't know who it is.
It's Denny.
Go on, it's Denny, he's
I
fine.
didn't think he had stripes on his.
It's got-
Anyhow,
It's Denny.
we would walk down that hill like that, about 2,000 feet to a spring and get her drinking water and bring it back to the house. And you wait till you come, you want me to finish or what? Get that cold water from the spring, and the best I remember, it tastes just like ice water compared to the water you would get out of a cistern. And we didn't have refrigerators. We didn't have electricity until I was about 5 years old when electricity come through. They didn't have electricity, they said, so we didn't have a refrigerator. But later on, Grandpa Ferguson had one of those, what they call ice boxes. You could put stuff in it and keep it cold with ice. He had one of them before they got electricity and had an electric refrigerator. But we would take milk after we milked the cows. We would take milk in glass jugs, butter that we would churn, and in dishes, sealed. We would take them to that spring and put them in that spring and leave them in cold water. And when we wanted some fresh milk, we'd go down there and get the milk. And you had to be careful not to carry a whole lot more of that milk home than you actually was going to drink at that time, because more than likely you would wind up getting sent back down the hill to take the extra milk back. So that was the only way we had of keeping things cold at that time for us processing.
What about in the summer?
Huh?
Were the springs cold in the summer? Were the springs cold in the summer?
Well, you could take that milk out of that spring and drink it in the summer. And to me back then, it would taste almost like drinking ice water out of a refrigerator now. It really wasn't that cold, but to me, it seemed it was. If you're got a bucket of water just sitting here now, and you just leave it sitting here all the time, it's hot, no air conditioning, no, you get a drink of water out of that bucket, that's what seems hot. But the water, the milk that we got from the spring always seemed to me to be cold, kind of like ice water.
How far was it to the spring from your house?
It was a hill like this, about 2,000 feet down there and about 2,000 feet back. So a lot of times when we go down to the spring, we take like 2.5 gallon milk buckets. We take a couple, and we had a steel rod that was made that you could hang in buckets on each side of that, and you could lay that rod the way it was bent across your shoulders like this, and carry that milk or the 2.5 gallon buckets full of water back up the hill to the house. That's how we got our drinking water.
And where was that? Where you grew up, where was that?
Where was it? Over Ferguson town. You know where Ferguson town's at?
Around Sulphur Lick and Sand Lick.
It's over between Forkton and Sulphur Lick.
Where jail is.
The white schoolhouse, was that the one? Is that what it was called? The one that burned down?
We went to, when we lived there at Grandpa's place, we went to the Bray School.
The Bray School was the one that burned
Bray
down.
School is over there where the Rainies had the house that burnt
That
a
burned
couple
all
of years
down.
ago. That used to be the Bray School. That's where we first went to school at.
There's a bug crawling up on top of the cabinet, John. Broke the window.
It's just a stink bug. What were your parents' names and your grandparents' names that lived over there?
What?
What were your parents' names and grandparents' names that lived over there?
What were their names?
Who's your family?
Mom and Pop.
I know, but the people listening don't know.
Tommy Ferguson and Carrie Hamilton Ferguson were my grandparents. Elmo Ferguson and Lena Hamilton Ferguson was my mother. Tommy had a brother named William. He had a brother named Herman. There was a whole bunch of them. But the best I remember is Tommy and William because we lived joining farms together. And I remember William always had squirrels in a cage over there.
Why?
You could feed them, you could throw stuff into them and feed them and everything. But one day I made a mistake sticking my finger in that cage with those squirrels. And that squirrel took a slice out of my finger about the white bits of his teeth down through there like that. And I learned a lesson that day. You know what it was?
Keep your fingers out of the cage.
Don't never stick your finger in a cage with a squirrel.
Why'd they have this? Were they pets?
Mm-hmm.
Why they have squirrels in cages?
He had pets. Back then, they used to kill squirrels and take them to town on Saturday or trade day or whatever day, and they would sell them squirrels or whatever to people in town. And they tell me that one time they was having a problem with rats. The rats can get pretty big. And some of the people decided if they could kill them squirrels and take them to town and sell them for a quarter or 75 cents or whatever they could get for it, if they could skin them rats and take them to town, they could sell them and do the same thing. That's what they did. And they said once people caught on to it, people got to doing that. This is what I've been told, that they had a restriction on the squirrels you could sell in town. Now, if you brought a squirrel, after they put the restrictions on, if you brought a squirrel to town to sell, you had to leave his tail, the furry tail and all, on his body. If not, you couldn't sell him because they were afraid of getting a rat.
They sold them for food?
Yes,
Yeah,
people used to hunt squirrels and eat squirrels all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I knew that, but I didn't know they took them down and sold them.
Well, yeah, people bought them, and rich people bought them.
Just like people take their eggs
yes.
to town.
Oh, that'd be
They take stuff like
that'd be
that to town.
rabbits, squirrels.
And I was told that somebody come up with an idea, we could just sell those wolf rats and get rid of them and make some money on them. And they put a stop to that after they figured out what they're doing.
No wonder. I think Ricky still sells rabbits to them rich people.
And getting back to the story you was telling the other day about Watson's casket company up here.
Yeah.
Grandpa and I guess William, his brother, they made these coffins back years and years ago. I'm 74 years old, and when I was maybe 7 or 8 years old, if I was that old, they had those coffins sitting in the tier poles and the tobacco barn. They had a row of them, kind of like 5 or 6 or something like that. And the family, when they were buried, some of them probably up at the Ferguson family cemetery, different ones, they made these coffins, they had them, and when they was buried, that's what they were going to be buried in. But for some reason, I know Grandpa wasn't buried in one. I don't know whether William Ferguson was buried in one of them or not, but they were still in the tiers of that barn, the poles. As I remember growing up, nobody ever used them, but Willie Randall, that's my brother, he would get up in those coffins and lay down. And long about dark, sundown time, we would go to milk. The cows in the stable, everything milked by hand back then. And he would be laying up in one of those coffins. And he would start moaning and groaning and carrying on. And the old cow didn't have to kick the bucket over. We'd throw the bucket down and run all the way back up that hill. And especially spooky if you went by that barn at night after dark. We'd go walking, visiting the neighbors around, playing around in the community. You come back down the old gravel lane road, you had to pass that tobacco barn with those coffins up in the tiers of the barn. And the barn and everything was fenced in so the cattle wanted to get out. And there's a big cattle gate there. And I remember running barefooted up through there past that barn when it would get about dark, and take a running hop and jump plumb over that gate and run on up the hill, because we were afraid that when we went by that barn that somebody was going to come out of one of those coffins and get us. And it was really Willie Randall, my brother, that was pulling all them pranks.
Why did y'all all just beat the fire out of him? Why didn't y'all gang up on him and beat the fire out of him? That's what I do. Why wouldn't you grab
When
on
we
him
killed
and
those
break
hogs
it?
I was talking about, we used everything. We used the lights, we used the liver, we used everything except for the squeal.
What's a
Throw
squeal?
nothing away but the squeal.
What's a squeal?
Do what?
What's a squeal?
You know, oink, 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 oink. We couldn't eat that. We
Why
could eat
wouldn't,
everything else.
why wouldn't you grandma and them buried in the casket they built?
Huh?
Why wasn't they buried in the caskets they built?
I don't rightly know. I was just little then, but some of them was buried in them, but the ones they had built, the later ones, to my knowledge, I don't know what one of them after Grandpa died and the farm was sold. What were those coffins?
Weird. I guess they sold them.